Hey Freddie, hey Sonia. I'm gonna just send out an email that we've got it opened up finally. Hang tight for just a sec. Hey Irma, I'm just sending an email to the others to let them know that they can join now. Sorry about the delay.
Okay.
Hey Sarah,
Hey, Hope, how are you?
I'm good. I don't know if Emily is getting my messages. I don't know if any of you are able to, actually I might be able to text her. Let's see.
Emily, Roller, and I were just on the call together, so yeah, she's joining.
Okay, good. Okay, great.
Hey, sorry, I show up as two
Everybody.
email addresses back to back instead of my name. I'm not sure how to fix that in WebEx. If anybody knows, tell me.
That's okay. It's just really, it's really you. um, I'm so sorry, everybody. We had an issue with our WebEx host licenses, and it took a while to resolve it, but we're finally up and running. So I think we should just get right down to it.
Yeah.
And I will hand it off to Sarah.
So, hi everyone. Thanks for joining. Sorry for the issues. Hope, are we recording, or do we need to be recording?
Yes, we are recording. Thank you for reminding me. Looks like Sonia's got it up and running.
Great. So we're recording, everyone, as we are, I think, supposed to for a public meeting. I hope everyone got Hope's agenda that she sent out a bit ago, a few days ago. if anyone doesn't, let me know. We can kind of resend it so it's at the top of your inbox. But the first order of business is just to review and approve the minutes from the April 14th Executive Subcommittee meeting. Oh, do we need to take, I mean, we all know who's here. Do we actually need to take roll? Okay, good. So if folks just want to pull up the minutes, review them, and then when ready, first and second for approval, or let us know if anything needs to be changed.
A motion to approve the minutes.
Right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Double thumbs up from Freddie. Great. Thank you all. The next is membership updates. So I think we have a couple updates for both the executive subcommittee and then also recommendations for full committee members if we wanted to reach out to folks to apply. So or to fill out to be considered. So Emily Griffey, I think most people here know, but Emily Griffey accepted a new job. And so she has left Voices. Friday was her last day, unfortunately. So she is recommended that we invite Emily Moore from Voices to fill her seat. And then she also sent the recommendation of, I hope, do you have the other individual's name in front of you?
Yeah, so she had mentioned Emily Moore as another person from Voices, and she said that she also floated the name of Bryant Thomas, who is the Vice President of Advancement at the Children's Hospital of the King's Daughters. I think she just had a conversation with him on another topic, and he expressed interest in joining since the hospital serves a large Medicaid population. So those were the two that were in the mix suggested by Emily. And then Sarah, I can talk about Dr. Brickhouse's recommendations, or
Yeah, that'd be great.
whatever. Yeah. So when Dr. Brickhouse moved out of state and let us know that she was leaving the committee, she recommended a couple of alternatives or new members that could, I think one of them is someone that could kind of take over what had been her role on the committee of being in the pediatric dentistry space. And the recommendation there was Sarah Holland with Virginia Health Catalyst. And there may be, we could approach Virginia Health Catalyst. There may be other members of the team if Sarah Holland is not able to. I believe she's been a CHIPAC member in the past. That would be some time ago. It was before I was staffing the committee, but I'm happy to reach out to her and see if she has suggestions with that subject matter expertise, because without Dr. Brickhouse, we don't have anyone with the dentistry expertise. And then the other recommendation that Dr. Brickhouse made was Dr. Carlos Smith from VCU. And does anyone know that name? I'm not sure if that's a person with pediatric dentistry background or if it's just a VCU person. So we have those two vacancies to fill, Dr. Brickhouse and Emily Griffey. And then there's also, you guys might remember, an additional vacancy on the committee. So we could put towards the full committee when they meet in September, we could put as many as 3 new nominees.
Did a quick Google search on Dr. Smith from VCU. He has an MDiv as well as a DDS and has an ethics background, it looks like, as well as dentistry.
I do think it's valuable to keep, I mean, Virginia Voices for Children has been a member for a long time, and I think they're very kind of knowledgeable about different policy issues. And I would suggest extending kind of another seat to them, to Emily, as one of the offers, Emily Moore. In terms of the other folks, I mean, I think Sarah Holland is great. We've worked with her too. She definitely brings some knowledge about Medicaid dental, but not from the provider perspective. not knowing, you know, the other individuals, I feel like it's hard for me to make a determination in terms of like who would be best to invite. I don't know if other folks have thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry.
I was just going to say there's others that y'all could, there's names that
Yeah.
have come up in the past. So yeah, feel free to open it up.
So there's 3 total, right? 3 spaces that we have available. Okay.
3 open positions. Yep.
So if we were to have someone from Voices, maybe someone in that pediatric dental area, and I know we had mentioned some names in the past too, to fill in on like other gaps in our expertise, and like the representation of the in the CHIPAC committee. So yeah, I think a provider um background would be very interesting in terms of like the dental space. And but again, I think I'd want to like reach out to these folks and just see like what their interest levels might be, and that they're fully aware of like the commitment and all that, um, before deciding. I don't know if that's possible, but
That's definitely possible. I mean, what we usually do is reach out, kind of say your name has come up. Is this something you'd be interested in doing? And send them some information about the commitment and what the committee is, because a lot of the time people are not familiar with it. So yeah, and I'm happy to do that in coordination with Sarah.
Yeah, my one like concern is like we reach out to everyone and everyone says yes, then we almost have to like draw back an offer. And so I think I'd strategically would rather like talk to 3 people, and then if someone says no, then talk to like a 4th versus like going to 5 people and like on the chance that everyone was like, yeah, it sounds great, and then we're like, never mind. That feels a little awkward to me.
Does anyone want to, it sounds like there was some agreement that, at least proceeding with, Emily Moore would be the voice as a Voices representative would be something you would all recommend. So you could start with a formal motion on that, and then we could talk about other possibilities.
And the formal motion is to do we have to vote on reaching out to her, and then the full committee needs to vote to add her as a member? Is that correct?
I'm not really sure if it strictly requires a motion to reach out to her, but maybe that's a good idea just to lock that in. And it's not that, so you're sort of nominating her for membership. But
Forward that motion. If that's helpful.
to extend the invitation. I can second.
Emily, yes. Freddie, second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Great. Right. That. And then, yeah, so thoughts on other folks, the ones raised, I think in the past we'd really, I think the other kind of gap or area we had talked about was inviting someone in who had a little more expertise on the maternal health side. A lot of our folks are focused on children's health, and a little bit less on the maternal side. So that's my memory of a lot of our conversations. Anyone please correct me or add if I have forgotten something. But yeah, it sounds like Sarah Holland, Dr. Smith, and then the physician that Emily Griffey recommended would be 3, and then potentially a 4th recommendation was maternal child health. We talked about folks in the doula space representing, I know, a lot of folks. Like the 2 people there are asked to do everything. It tends to be the same two names, so I don't know if there are others or other maybe physicians in that space or public health folks in that space who could also would be willing to participate. But happy to have that conversation a little more thoroughly now as well.
Sarah, who is it you're thinking of that's asked to do everything already?
It is for the Urban Babies Beginnings and what's the other one's name who I'm blanking on? Freddie, help me out, please.
Are you talking about Stephanie Spencer
Yes.
and Kendra
Yeah.
Sutton?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of said no. Yeah. Yeah, so those are like my immediate like um champions when I think of like maternal health issues and advocacy. And obviously they are in the field, you know, they have practicing doulas and maternal health workers on staff. So I think they have a good experience, like a good combination of like policy understanding and also like practical like in the field work. So I think either of them would provide like a really good representation of maternal health issues in like real time too. So I think it sounds like we have like five potential names for two spots between both the dental expertise and the maternal health expertise. So um, I'm not sure how we want to move forward in terms of like narrowing that down, but I think I like that idea at least. I'm pretty comfortable with those five names in general. Um, so yeah, I think the only next step would be how do we narrow it down.
It's also an option to continue to think about it and continue the discussion at the next meeting. You know, there's no minimum number of members, and
Mhm.
neither of these new vacancies are mandated members of the committee. Like the organizations are not, you know, mandated member organizations. So the committee could just be at, you know, 17 or 18 members for a while.
And Hope, do you have on the top of your head like the next round of folks who will roll off? Do we know how many? This
It's
doesn't
not till
hurt to have a list
December.
of folks to reach out to at that
Yeah,
point too.
it's not till December.
Okay.
And I think we'll have some renewals at that point. So I don't necessarily foresee any additional vacancies for, you know, another 6 months to a year.
I mean, my one thought is just kind of like one per, like, given the limitation of the cap right now, like one dental provider, maybe instead of like two dental providers and one other to fill those two spots, right? So like either Sarah or the dentist from VCU. And then, you know, I don't know anything, but I can reach out to Emily and just try to get a little more information about Bryant Thomas and his background. Or we can say like, no, we really feel like we have a need for maternal, someone who's working in that space, and reach out to Stephanie or Kendra.
Yeah, it seemed like I mean, I think that you got this email too, Sarah, maybe, but it seemed like from Emily's email with those recommendations, she had mentioned that Bryant had approached her or had mentioned to her that he was interested. I don't know. I don't know if that was something she put out there or not, but so that's somebody that maybe she could tell you a little more about his background so that we would kind of know what the interest was based on.
I can do that.
But it, you know, it would be interesting to have a hospital voice in addition to VHHA.
That's true. Yeah, I was looking at the Google machine was with Dr. Smith, and he has a public health background too, so that's also like interesting. So lots of good options, which is a good thing to have. I also want to ask, does this also mean we have a executive committee space available?
Yes, that was kind of next on the list as well. Is
I'll jump in the agenda.
potential
Sorry.
kind of recommendations for inviting someone new to join the executive subcommittee.
At the same time, there's no max number of members for the executive subcommittee, so you could also keep it at 4. If you want an odd number for, since you guys get in so many contentious debates, it could be good to have a tie-breaking vote. um, you know, it could grow by more than 1. It's kind of up to you all what you want to do and if you want to invite somebody else to join. But you know, we've mentioned at meetings before, hey, step up and volunteer if you're interested, and haven't really gotten any takers lately. So I think it would probably need to come from you all. Like we'd proactively need to extend an invitation to somebody.
How about can we just like throw it out there for the next like large meeting? Maybe someone just like mid-year, just man, I'm really trying to get after this execs committee, but if not, then we can maybe just volun ask, tell people, ask them so join. So I think that works.
So it sounds like at the next meeting we can leave a little bit more time than standard for membership updates and have a conversation about who we may want to invite if there are other folks, narrowing it down, and then or just topic areas. I don't know if I want to like get into conversations about specific individuals. That feels but say, you know, we've had Dr. Brighouse leave, Emily leave. We've, you know, inviting Emily more to retain voices on the committee, but we feel like the 2 areas kind of that have been identified as gaps now would be dental with Dr. Brighouse leaving and maternal. And just do you have thoughts on inviting people in those spaces to join and leave the conversation a little more open-ended and then make maybe some more decisions or offers at the next executive subcommittee meeting? And then also ask if anyone wants to join the party here with us on executive sub. And then if not, we'll figure out if we do want to invite someone else. I think it would be, I mean, I feel like the 3 of us obviously all work really well together. We also are all kind of work on like the same side of things in the same space. So it might be nice just to have, invite someone who has different experience, works in a different space to bring that to some of these conversations. Okay. Hope, does that make sense to you? Does that sound feasible?
That sounds good. And just also, you know, if the full committee, you know, if they discuss it for a while, there may be some folks who would be hesitant to like throw a name out there, you know, of somebody that they hadn't checked with first. So we could just tell people that they could email us after the meeting with any thoughts on nominees as well.
Absolutely. And then the next thing on just kind of general business and updates was the 2024 meeting schedule. So that was also included in the packet that Hope sent with proposed dates for both the full committee meeting as well as the executive subcommittee meetings. And if folks want to take a second to pull that up, we would vote on it and adopt, I guess, the executive meeting and vote to like propose the full committee meeting schedule to the full committee, and we could vote on it next meeting. Line mine up, and it also indicates, you know, which ones, again, we could do the same half virtual, half in person. So I think what we did this year with the ones around the holidays and summer being virtual because people tend to be traveling more at those times, and then the other ones in person, but that can be shifted around if folks felt like that didn't work as well.
So if you all could kind of just take a look at your calendars and if you can flag or foresee anything that is a obvious conflict. Like this year there was there's an annual conference that came up that presented a conflict for some people. Wasn't enough people to cause a problem, but that sort of thing. If there's like if you guys see any clear issues, there's also always the issue of meetings during session, and so you might want to take a look at that at the January and I guess also the March meetings. The way that I put together the schedule is kind of just by tradition and force of habit that we do first Thursday for the full committee and third Friday the new executive subcommittee meeting, now that we're shifting to like 6 weeks in advance of the meeting, is third Friday. And so that's kind of what I went with, except for the December meeting. I went for second Thursday because it was really close to Thanksgiving otherwise, which makes it difficult to prepare for the meeting. So that's the only one that's kind of departs from that template.
At this moment I don't see any major conflicts in my calendar.
Likewise.
Freddie, do you know off the top of your head what day session will start for 2024?
I haven't. Like just for my mental
Haven't-
health. I haven't even like thought.
Yeah.
Of it.
If it's that, but even if it's
Let's see.
that week, the first week is usually pretty, especially the first Friday. I don't imagine
I
it
feel
would be
like it's like
too.
the second Tuesday or something. Second
Yeah, it's
Wednesday.
probably January 10th, which is a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday. So that would be like the first full week. So like the alternative would be if we think that the 19th would be because it's like the first full week, again, usually pretty slow. But we could move it up to the 12th if we wanted, just to make sure we were clear of anything happening at session. I'm inclined to say the 19th probably is fine, but just throwing it out there.
I'd be open to moving it up.
And does anyone have a conflict on the 12th?
I'll defer to you guys for that time of year.
Yeah, I feel like that first week might be a little bit easier, like in terms of all the craziness that happens and all the meetings that start ramping up the following week, first full week and all that. So it's probably a bad time to tell you all that I'm not going to be here for the September meeting. I'm going to be traveling. I will send someone in my stead. But a wedding came up. Those things are hard to kind of plan ahead of time. But yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like everything looks good, but moving the January meeting from the January executive subcommittee meeting from the 19th to the 12th. Does that, like, within DMAS's schedule of other meetings and all of those things, does that work for you guys?
Yeah, that's fine, especially because it's a virtual meeting. So
And then do we need to vote to adopt or does exec not need to vote? We just need to present it to full committee to vote.
traditionally we vote. It's not I guess I'll say, even if you guys vote on it to approve it, if somebody between now and the full committee meeting, if somebody's like, oh wait, this is a major conflict, we can also still shift things around. But I think just for the minutes to have to to speak to like a motion that occurred, I would say vote to approve with the revision of the January the 12th. Vote to approve and put it forward for the full committee to finalize.
Yeah, so I motion to approve this the time with the change of January 12th, moving the January 19th to January 12th, and advancing the dates to the full committee.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nope. Great. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. That takes care of our kind of general business. Back to my other sheet. So our next kind of big thing is just planning for our next meeting. We obviously don't, really have a new budget to go off of. September will also be, after the agencies have submitted their budget packages, but before they're released and before, obviously, we have like the governor's proposed budget for the upcoming session. So Hope and I were talking about maybe just having a conversation about being able to be a little broader in recommendations versus really specific with the list we have. Because the timing just, it feels like a lot of work, but that without much opportunity for an impact given the timing. And so if we maybe took a step back and did a little broader review of Medicaid options for the committee just to kind of learn about and understand so that we could take that forward for recommendations and kind of internally within each organization kind of start thinking about things like maybe multi-year continuous eligibility or different things. We also talked about maybe some updates on stuff like school-based services, which potentially could finally be moving again now that CMS has released like 200 pages of guidance on it. Yeah, Hope, I know we kind of talked about some other specific things that we could get updates on, but just as a high level kind of umbrella of structure, does that sound good? Does that not sound good? What are y'all's thoughts on that?
So is it instead of the recommendations that we had talked about, just doing like a more like general conversation and like increasing knowledge of like the options to CHIPAC members? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we could end up voting to do a recommendation letter on a certain thing. But again, it would have to be like a longer term recommendation, right? Potentially saying like, please consider like introducing this legislation, but it would still need like a budget, and budget packages are already going to be submitted, right? Because like any change has to go through, would have to be funded. So it feels like time-wise we kind of missed it a little bit, and I don't want to create a lot of redundant work for little to no impact versus like if we could have some robust conversations and get like some really strong recommendations for longer term impact options that potentially could be more beneficial. And I do think there's kind of the side benefit of like helping folks who are not in the weeds with like all the different options available from CMS, thinking about these things so that they can bring them back with their kind of perspectives and then internally with their organization. So if they do come up later, they're like, I know about this. This is what, it is and why we would want to support or not support or things like that.
In terms of how that might feed the presentation topics from the agencies as well, could we ask for a presentation from DMAS about how the 1-year continuous coverage is going to be implemented starting in January, right? Isn't that beginning in January 2024? So I think that might.
Yeah, so it's a pretty short update. Everything is on target to implement And for 1 year continuous eligibility, it's not as big of a change. Like it unfortunately, the issues that we have with churn are primarily around that renewal, and the one year continuous eligibility is within the 1 year period, right? That's when the income changes won't affect eligibility. So the good news is that it's not a huge struggle to implement, but the bad news is that probably like waiver authority to do multi-year continuous eligibility is much more of a impactful change that some states are making now. But we could certainly do that. One thing that I had mentioned, Sarah, when we spoke, was whether we might be able to maybe invite an outside presenter or put together something that gives a little bit of an update on state comparative context. We did a presentation like that a few years ago that it drew upon the Kaiser update that comes out annually, that ranks the states and has maps on different CHIP and Medicaid eligibility related options. So, states that have continuous eligibility, presumptive eligibility, and then it gives the updated state averages for income eligibility ceilings for children and pregnant individuals. It's because I say that because, like, for example, Florida just raised their income ceiling for children. So, states are we're getting further behind the pack on the children's income limit. And so that might be worth providing some additional context there, because a lot of the items in the current running list that we put forward in at the last meeting, a lot of those were the same types of things that just basically options within Medicaid and CHIP to expand eligibility for kids and pregnant women. So we could kind of get a sense like, well, where do we really stand in some of those areas? And maybe there would also be an option to talk about some of these new flexibilities and state models, like what Washington and Oregon are doing around multi-year continuous eligibility, to see if that's something that the committee would be interested in helping to introduce into the conversation in Virginia during the legislative session.
And Freddie, or just everyone, we also talked about like comparative, just reviewing again, like which states had implemented options to cover children regardless of immigration status as well, because it's kind of a growing number. So like updating on like, hey, other states are making progress on covering these kids.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense.
We floated the idea of inviting someone from the Georgetown Center. Sarah had recommended that might be a good. Do you guys have other thoughts on sort of outside entities that we might be able to invite to provide some context on some of the policy areas of interest to the committee?
John is the logical first stop. The other one that came to mind for me was Center on Budget, but we've already got Shelby on the committee. So, and then maybe from somebody from Kaiser, but I think they probably work in tandem with Georgetown on a lot of this, right? Or Georgetown's data source comes from some of the Kaiser studies.
Yeah, I've never heard a representative from Kaiser. I've never ever met anybody from Kaiser or seen them present. I don't know if anybody else has a
No, I was
contact.
gonna say, no, actually, that organization came to mind, but I wouldn't know of the who exactly.
Use their materials all the time, but
Yeah, I could
it's faceless.
I could shoot Larry Levitt, who I follow on Twitter. I'll shoot him a DM, and maybe that's the way that we he's like the executive over there. But I like the idea of Georgetown just because they focus so much on child and well-being, health coverage. I just feel like it's just like they focus so much on this space, so it's a natural kind of thing.
So the ask is sort of, could they help us level set to provide some context on Virginia, where Virginia stands in terms of children's coverage and eligibility. Because and they also do a, they can sort of look at what are our what's it called, percentage of eligible children who are covered. They could
Okay,
give an
great.
update on that.
They do that.
Um,
They do a good job at tracking that and talking about ways to lift that up. So
Yeah, and then just talk a little bit more about the current landscape of different flexibilities and tools for expanding eligibility that other states are trying out. There's also an option that I heard about recently that has not been approved yet to my knowledge, but Arizona has applied for an 1115 waiver that would provide automatic annual renewal for former foster youth. So that's an interesting flexibility out there that's entering the mix.
and I think they would also be well positioned to talk about like children's coverage loss through the Medicaid redetermination compared to other states and stuff. I know we've been getting great updates, not great update, but we've been getting very informative updates about unwinding, and from you all. But yeah, it'd just be interesting to see how we look or how we compare to the other states that they're tracking. So
Yeah, and I can't remember, Sarah, if you mentioned this already, but I would imagine that sort of top of the agenda would be a little bit of a where we stand right now with unwinding. Any updates that
We didn't say that. I feel like it was like maybe just to
Okay.
give it.
Okay, yeah. So unwinding, anything we can say about managed care changes and procurement, and just sort of a basic status update on those major ongoing projects. And then school services, as we discussed. And then if we have a state comparative context presentation, if we're able to get Georgetown, if anybody's available on that date, and then we could follow that with a discussion. That's kind of a crowded agenda at that point.
are there was there any major bills that had passed that had a budget impact in Medicaid?
Not children related that come to mind for me. Do others want to flag anything?
Yeah, I mean the other like just off the top of my head, like I know there was like budget amendments specific, not like legislation passed, but budget amendments around like uh behavioral health reimbursement rates, which I think could be applied to children. But yeah, I just wanted to think through that a little bit if we needed to flag anything for other members who might, be thinking, all right, this bill passed, so it's gonna happen, but it's not because of the budget issues. But I don't think there's anything like that. But just wanted to raise the question.
Were there other, because we had talked about an update on school-based services too, and I know it's already like a pretty full agenda. I think that could be a relatively quick, like it's a topic the committee has discussed before, but it's just been pending for so long. Do you think we'd have time for like a relatively quick update on that? With like contact information if folks have specific other questions to who to reach out to at DMAS and BDOE on it.
Yeah, I had shared with you that my understanding is that we have a new maternal child health manager starting in the next that's a position within the healthcare services team. And that they should be starting in a couple weeks. And so I'm hoping that that person, I think that they should be able to provide a school services update and, just sort of anything else that is going on in that space related to managed care. So they may be able to sort of be the procurement update person also.
Great. Well, then, I mean, that sounds full enough to me. Anyone else? All right. Well, then, let me know. I'm happy to help reach out to Georgetown folks there. So just, yeah, let me know how I can help. And then if you want to reach out to the state folks, obviously that always works better. Great. And then, I think that it's just kind of open committee discussion at this point. I hope, unless I'm missing something else that we'd.
I think we've covered everything on the agenda. So, just anything else that you all wanted to throw out there, and then we can do a quick public comment and see if anybody has comments.
So last time we talked to the full committee, we said that we were gonna draft something. So we're gonna let them know that we're not gonna draft anything, and that instead we're gonna have a more informative. And then are we gonna offer any opportunity for them to discuss that, or are we just gonna be like?
Oh, we can. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm happy to take the fall on that and
I mean, there's no
explain
fault
it
in
and
it,
just
really.
say,
It's
like,
just,
if you guys
yeah,
really want to do this, I mean,
yeah,
to be blunt, like, I can't make choices for the committee. And so if nobody on
yeah,
the committee wants to, like, participate or vote or define things that they want to include in these letters, it really feels like it puts us in a bind, because I'm not comfortable making a decision or recommendations on the behalf of the committee when it doesn't
yeah,
feel like there's been sufficient committee input or buy-in on those things. And
right.
so I'm
And
not really sure what other options are kind of presented before us as the executive subcommittee, unless we want to say, like, hey guys, this is what we're doing. Hope you're okay with it. That just feels like it's not kind of the collaborative committee approach.
yeah, no, I feel you. I just I feel like I'm just trying to think ahead if there are like some folks that feel certain ways about that change, like just how we move forward with that. But I agree that like it very much felt like, all right, you know what, like you all take the wheel and we'll just go with it. But I think the approach of like closing the knowledge gap, so maybe folks can make a better informed decision as a collective moving forward, might be the best way to move forward, and realizing that this is more of a longer term um, solution instead of just trying to push push like smaller things here. So yeah.
Right. And I understand, like, because all this originally came out from conversations of, like, we want to be more engaged, we want to be making recommendations. And so I know that, is a desire that's been expressed by many committee members. It's just like, then we need to, like, maybe like the structure that we provided for doing that wasn't efficient enough, and so we need to restructure that to get that feedback, or time it differently next year. But again, it's like I can't I don't feel comfortable making decisions on behalf of a full committee. And so if in that conversation, folks do say, well, we still really want to push for this one or two things, and people are on board that, I'm happy to do kind of the behind the scenes work to get that before folks for an additional vote, for sign-ons, whatever the desire may be. But yeah, I mean, we can definitely, like, include that in the opening for that conversation, if you think that would be an effective way of addressing it.
And I think we can be clear that like if folks are still interested in advocating for certain policies, that we would be more than happy to connect them to other resources outside of this maybe committee, that will be working on those things, just because we want to just have the full buy-in from folks before we start putting the CHIPAC, seal of approval and letter.
Right.
So maybe
And
that's
it is, yeah, it is challenging with such like only 4 meetings a year and such a diverse group of stakeholders. So maybe we can, in our next executive subcommittee meeting, revisit the structure of how, or the timeline, and make it a little more concrete that like in the January meeting, we will do this and this, so that by this meeting we can do this. And maybe I should have been a little more organized with that for this year, but didn't happen.
Yeah, I think if it's laid out just like you shared it at the beginning of this meeting, Sarah, that, just to maximize the impact of whatever we did want to put forward, it just makes sense to strategize a little bit first and level set. I mean, I think we've kind of danced around this already, but a lot of the folks on the committee may not necessarily realize kind of what options are available to raise in the first place. So this, I think, having a couple of meetings worth of planning time is great to put this forward for the next packages.
might be a really big package. So we'll see.
Well, it's not going to happen if no one ever raises it, right? Even if it takes 10 years. Are there any other just general comments or other issues folks want to discuss? If not, I don't see anyone from the public, so I don't think we need to pause for public comment. But great. Well, I appreciate all your time today. Sonia Hope, thanks for dealing with all of the tech issues, and sorry that's how you had to spend a good chunk of time this morning. But thank you for getting us up and running. And yeah, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day and the weekend coming up.
Thanks everybody for being patient with us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.